if you check in 1999, for instance, December 31st, Russians, the president of Russia then was a then 66 years old Boris Yeltsin. So Russians were very surprised that day when they woke up and the president was to be on air by 10 a.m. No one saw it coming. But by that 10 a.m., he read his speech, and it was a resignation speech. Yeah, he said in paragraph 9 of that speech that, in fact, it is inappropriate. In fact, it is not the right thing that at this age of 66, I'll lead Russia into the new century and new millennium with antiquated ideas. I want to hand over the reins of government to my prime minister, 41-year-old Vladimir Putin. By then, Putin was just 41 years. And you see a man of 66 years old saying he cannot see himself leading Russia up to the next day. The next day, you know, that day was 31st December 1999. So the next day was to be a new year. It wasn't just a new year, but it's to be a new century and a new millennium. 1st January of 2000 is a landmark day because the beginning of another 100 years and another 1,000 years. So he could not at that point, at 66, see himself leading Russia up to the following day with this kind of ideas. And he then handed over power to his prime minister, Putin, who was just 41 years old at that point. Now, of course, that's my age rate. 41 at that point. So you see, that is what other countries think about it. Always think of new ideas. But here in Nigeria, we have people who, and very unfortunately, the same old guards had power on their laps when they were even younger than us. But they are still not ready to relinquish power.
Yeah, but they took it. It wasn't given.
Yeah, and that is why I was telling my peers and today's generation that we have to take this, because in every revolution you have to apply some level of madness. Chairman Mao of China say a revolution cannot be handled with kid gloves, and it's not a cup of tea. So you have to apply some sense of madness into it, and that is what we should do if we are truly desirous of having a very great nation. If not, we'll continually and continuously remain in a state of quagmire that we'll find ourselves. In Nigeria today, we have leaders who have attained level of political menopause. They cannot be able to provide, you know, they are not fertile. They cannot be able to conceive any fertile idea again. So they ought to retire, and we have to help them retire.
Okay. What is Nigeria of your dream? Can you describe that?
Nigeria of my dream, quite clear, is for some of us that have been there, we schooled in quite a number of countries, and we've seen it all. I think I want Nigeria of my dream to be like where I've been, where I've schooled. For instance, let me take Malaysia, where I first went to school, and because we started all together, you know. Malaysia got her independence on the 31st of August 1957. Nigeria 1st of October 1960. And in the first 15 years of Nigeria's independence, Nigeria was far ahead of Malaysia until the turnaround under the leadership of Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, who happens to be voted back again this year at 92, the oldest leader in the world anyway. You could see that for us to have a Nigeria of our dream, we have to first of all create a very formidable structure. The pillars of a great country are built on the structure of justice. We need justice. We need equity. We need fair play. And then we have to build our beacon on democracy, opportunity, and unyielding hope. Let this be a country where there are opportunities for everybody. You can be what you want to be. And then there is hope. Let's not be in a state of hopelessness. Let the leadership be a leadership that is a very charismatic kind of leadership, and a leadership that inspires. That is what we've been lacking. In Nigeria, we misinterpret the definition.
So corruption is not actually our problem?
No, we need inspiration. Corruption is one of the problems. But let me tell you the truth, corruption is a secondary problem. If we can be able to have what are those virtues I was able to highlight, then corruption can be done away with. Because I talk of justice, of course, it means that if you are corrupt, justice will be applied, you know? Yes. So if we're talking, we have to talk of the virtues first. This will serve as the foundation, the basis of any true nation. United States started just like that too. You understand? They built their country on these same virtues: fairness, equity, justice, transparency, opportunity, freedom, hope. If we can have this, we can be. So the Nigeria of my dream is a Nigeria built on these pillars. The Nigeria that provides opportunity for every young man, every young woman out there to be what she wants to be. A Nigeria where patriotism is highlighted in everything we do. You understand? Because by the time you begin to love your nation very much, you see that you aid the nation in her growth and in her development and in her progress. Let me give you an instance again. I like making an analogy between Nigeria and Malaysia, because we are all British colonies, and then we'll gain our independence almost at the same time. Like in Nigeria, you hardly see people show so much commitment, so much nationalism, you know, except maybe during football matches, before we remember our Nigerianness during football matches, you know. But if you go to other countries, like Malaysia, for instance, their independence was 31st of August, right? But right from 1st of August, you see that every building in that country, every car will have the Malaysian flag flying. Every car on the street. And nobody forced them to do that. But because of the pride they have in their country, they know that that month, the independence is called in Malaysia, in their language, Merdeka. That's in Bahasa Malay. It's called Merdeka. That's a Merdeka month, you know. August, which is this month. If you go to Malaysia now, every building, and they have a lot of high-rise buildings, you know, you see even on the roof of those high-rise buildings, you see Malaysian flags flying on trains, on buses, on coaches, on cars. So it inspires a sense of belonging and a sense of pride in the country, and it propels you to do something meaningful for your country. I think that is one aspect that we should harness in this country.
Okay.
Yeah, nationalism.
Okay. You are aspiring to go back to the House of Reps.
To go to.
Yes. Okay, you didn't win the first time.
Yeah.
You're aspiring to go to.
Yes.
House of Reps again.
Yeah.
Why do you think the people should vote you?
Very clear. Very, very clear. My manifesto. You know, we live in a country where people don't really understand the work of the parliament. If the three arms of government work according to their job description, we won't have much problems in this country. Today, I want to go to the House of Reps because I want to completely implement exactly what the parliament is there for. The kind of people we have right now in the parliament, they do some kind of menial executive jobs and call it parliamentary, part of their parliamentary project. You know, parliament is not all about projects. Do you understand?
Really?
You find people going to build gutters, building roads, and calling it part of their parliamentary activities. First of all, parliament, there are three primary responsibilities of every parliament. First is lawmaking. The second is representation. And the third is oversight. You understand? So right now, there are a lot of our laws that need to be retinkered. There are many areas, again, where we need laws. Like, for instance, one of the laws I really want to sponsor in the National Assembly is a bill for an act to establish the Benue Valley Security Development Commission. It will be modeled after the Marshall Plan. You know, in 1945, after the Second World War, which happened between 1939 and 1945, almost half of Europe was devastated. You know, so America had to institute the Marshall Plan headed by George Marshall. It was named after him, George Marshall, you know, who had to redesign Europe. And they have to pump so much money into the project to build areas that were devastated by the war, and then to compensate families that were quite devastated. Do you understand? And displaced. If you go to the Benue Valley, which of course my own village and my own local government is part of Guma local government, you find that there's so much displacement of people, so much devastation of homelands and farmlands, and people have been displaced. But there's no law to cater for these people. So that law is meant to is meant to be given a statutory backing where every year government would be budgeting money for rehabilitation of these people that have been displaced by the insurgency, the Fulani headsmen, armed headsmen crisis, and then rebuild their homes and their communities, and then train their kids that lost school times, So these are the kind of things we need at this point. It's been happening elsewhere. Even in the Niger Delta, you have the NDDC, the Niger Delta Development Commission that have been doing something close to what I'm trying to say. So we are ripe to have the Benue Valley Security and Development Commission. And then the law will also provide for the establishment of security points at the various flash points. There are many areas where these insurgents do come from, like the natural axis, we should be able to provide security checks, security points in those places.
But do we necessarily need a law to do that?
Yes, a law will give it statutory backing, so it means that it has to be there at all. It becomes a duty at that point. When there's no law, it's no longer a duty. At most, it becomes an obligation. But when there's law, it gives it backing of a duty, failure of which there will be sanction. They understand? So that is first and foremost. And of course, we have so much of our laws that need to be overhauled again and need to be amended. This is what people should be seen do in the parliament. And in terms of representation, you see, I'm quite a fan of Senator Dino to some extent, because some people look at some of the things he does as nuisance. But if you are if you have true knowledge of how the parliament works, you know that he is a very good example of what a parliamentarian should be. He has always been drawing the attention of the government of the day to some acts that are quite inappropriate, and see to it that he fought it to the very last. Like, for instance, there was a time that Custom just brought up a policy that because most of the cars that do come in the country don't pay custom duties, so they'll start arresting cars even inside the town. They can just flash you down, and check whether you have custom duties, and if you don't have, they'll seize the car. We know that duties are received at the point of entry, right? So they brought that as a policy, but he was the one that took it up, fought it on the floor of the house, that it is quite improper for custom to, and it was killed.
It would have set a lot of Nigerians into distress.
Exactly. So you see, but a lot of people, they don't always look at this. They go into the parliament, they just sit, they just think of what they can part in the budget and then get something, go back to the communities and be doing the work of what should be the work of a local government chairman.
I wanted to say something about the constituency, the third constituency projects for the lawmakers all over, from the Senate, House of Reps, and up to the state level, even to the local government, that is happening now that you think is wrong, or it's wrong, it's even wrong. That's not supposed to be their duty. But don't you think that is like an intervention from them, looking at the fact that most of this executive have failed? If you go to my local government, for example, there's no good water, hygienic water for me to drink. So if an honorable member sees that coming from that constituency and decide that, okay, there's a way I can make this come faster through that particular policy, is anything wrong with that?
It's not altogether wrong, and I'm not calling for the complete abrogation of the Constituency Project. Do you understand?
Okay.
What I'm challenging is the complete turnaround of duties for a lawmaker. For a lawmaker, for instance, not thinking that he's in the house to make laws or to provide adequate representation, but to be able to get what he can get and build some project within the constituency. This is what we're facing. We have the kind of lawmakers that for the entirety of the legislative year, they do not utter one word on the floor of the house. They do not sponsor one bill.
But is it possible for everybody to sponsor a bill and everybody to talk at the same time? There are so many.
It is possible if we take into cognizance the number of the legislative sittings. Do you understand? We're not talking of everybody speaking a day. But you were there because of the interest of your people, isn't it? So you should be able to speak out about what concerns them. Because that is the first reason why you are there. But we have people who, and some may want to just go into the books as people who sponsor bills without actually doing a proper research. They'll just sponsor a bill that doesn't pass beyond first reading. You know, those are very unserious kind of lawmakers. This country is quite backward, and we need politics and governance should be a very serious business. We need people who can research properly, who knows what's happening elsewhere, and who want to place the country on a fast lane to be able to catch up, because the truth of the matter is that we're left behind. We're very, very far behind. So I want to go into the parliament to provide effective representation, to be able to sponsor laws that will have direct bearings on the life of our people, on the life of the nation. Also want to provide an oversight, because the oversight is a taught duty, the responsibility of a lawmaker. So if, for instance, we have people who are only quite desirous of getting their constituency project and going to build 1 or 2 boreholes, why not, in playing your oversight role, why not, for instance, interface with, let's say, the Minister of Water Resources? Go meet the Minister of Water Resources, be able to tell the Minister of Water Resources the problem of water in your area, in your community, and be able to get the minister capture that in the budget. And then you play your oversight function of making sure that all these things are implemented. Okay, so at that point, it will serve a higher number of people and higher number of communities, rather than you just go to get some very colossal amount of money and then sink just one borehole in just one place.
Okay, the money is not given to them directly. The money is not given to them directly.
But
they're just
whether it's not given to them, there's a connection between them and the money.
Okay, say something. You know, we talk so much when we're outside of government. Yes. We think that there is so much in that government. As you could see, the APC government, they said that they will squash Boko Haram in 6 months. Up to now, we are still battling with Boko Haram. They said that there was nothing like fuel subsidy. It's fraud. But they get in and they discover that there was actually something like fuel subsidy. Talking from someone from the outside, don't you think that they would have tried all these means of liaising with the ministers to see that projects are done to their people? It didn't work. That's the reason why they decided to take it by force. Just like you're saying, violence, take it by force.
Yeah, let me take you by your example. It's like the issue of the security challenges we have in the country, the Boko Haram, etc. The truth of the matter is that there's just no political will. And I'll refer you back to a very popular statement that's attributed to Abacha, that when an insurgency lasts more than 24 hours in a country, the government has a hand in it. I want to take that as truth.
Okay, so you want to tell me that good luck had a hand in Hensman killing too?
It may not be good luck directly. Good luck is not the only person in government. Do you understand?
Okay.
It's not the only person.
Okay, I understand.
The government may be at the grassroots. There may be the state government. There may be even 1 or 2 ministers or 1 or 2 senators. You know. But the government is responsible for the utmost security of every nation. The government has every security apparatus within her. There's no how an insurgency will stay in a country, reside in a country. In other places, we find that insurgency is bred from the outside, and they go into a country and strike and disappear. You understand? Like the terrorism that happened in the soil of the United States. You know, it was not bred from the inside. It was organized from the outside. They go just a day, strike, and then it becomes...
But what about the popular London Bridge? It was from within that it came.
But was it sustained? It happened immediately, and of course, it was taken care of immediately. Do you understand? And it goes back to what the Abacha said, that if it lasts more than this, you know that there is something within the government that is festering it. But the only countries that you can mention examples of insurgency happening within inside and being sustained are countries that are best described as failed states today. Somalia, Yemen, Afghanistan, Pakistan. So we shouldn't be emulating these countries. We should be able, okay, look at Kenya, for instance. Al-Shabaab does organize from outside, from Somalia, for instance. They come into Kenya, blast, and then disappear. And then you don't have such cases again in Kenya till after a year or 2 or 1 event. But in Nigeria, it has been a consistent feature. So it means that there's just that lack of will. And of course, that it will go back to the same to your question. If there is that will for the legislators to take up their responsibility wholeheartedly, 101% legislative responsibility, and there's that will for the executive, there's that way for the judiciary. We won't have these problems of
That's true.
overlap. Do you understand?
That's true.
Yeah. The local government chairman, the allocation that goes to the local government should go straight to them, so that the local government will go back to our responsibility of putting up, building dispensaries, building these gutters, rural roads. Those are the things we knew local government to be doing when we were growing up under military regimes. You see that today, most of the things that state governments do today and begin to call them dividends of democracy were things that during my teenage age were done by local government chairmen.
Yeah.
You understand? I grew up as a local government, as a nursery and primary school pupil in Jos. I knew that all those things were done by just not chairman. You know, in our school, you see classroom blocks being built by local government, drainages by local government. But today, these are projects of the state government.
So is our democracy growing or is deteriorating?
Our democracy is growing in terms of age, but not in terms of value. That's the truth of the matter. It's growing in terms of age and not in terms of value. Yeah, every day, every time you see examples of what a democracy ought not to be in Nigeria, you know, it's quite very unfortunate, and it can't take us anywhere if we continue to practice such kind of phantom democracies, you know. So in terms of age, yeah, we'll be 20 next year. Our democracy will be 20 next year. But it's a democracy that is in a motion without movement. Do you understand? It's just, we call it, it's quite rolling, but it's not moving. It's not going anywhere. So we need to first of all imbibe the most genuine spirit of democracy, which is built on rule of law, on right procedure, on fairness, on transparency. In the absence of all these things, what you only have is a civilian regime and not a democracy. Okay,
some people have argued that the democracy that is almost, Nigerian democracy that is almost 2 decades, did not and has not profited the poor or the masses, but just the political office holder. What do you think of this? Yeah, there's an element of truth in that statement. The only side to it is that for every government, no matter how tyrannical or how unjust it may be, there must be, to some extent, advantages derivable to the mass of the people. You understand? Even the most tyrannical regimes in the world, the people do benefit at a point. You know, so the democracy today has benefited both the elites and the general masses, but the concentration of benefit is on the side of the elites, you know, because if we say it's only elitist in nature, it's not quite very fair, because we've seen what it has been able to benefit the masses. We've been seeing some dividends of democracy, as we do call them here, that have gone down to the grassroots, like the GSM, the inception of the GSM. We've seen that almost everyone has it now, and of course, 1 or 2 other examples here and there. But basically, we've seen a kind of democracy where the entirety of the wealth of the nation, almost 90% of the wealth, is concentrated on less than 10% of the population, in the hands of 10% of the population. And that is quite very unfair. And it's one area that calls for readjustment, so that we will just not have wealth generation and wealth circulation within this, but of course circulation within the generality of the people. Okay, there's a group of young men that are coming up. Not too young to run bill is already passed into law. It's a law now, yeah. Yeah, and they are saying that they're advocating for the scrapping of federal character that is rather dividing us. What do you have to say about it? Because we have a lot of division in Nigeria. It's either people are protesting that I have no minister from my place, or people are protesting that the government is empowering the other people more. Is it actually supposed to be about where it comes from, or about the quality of the people in these offices? That is their argument. Their argument is... Yeah, I'm not a fan of federal character, and I'm not a fan of zoning. Okay. I'm a fan of meritocracy.
And I want 2019 to be zoned to merit rather than geographical zoning.
Okay.
You know, because truthfully, that's one of our problems in this country, where we begin to feel that somebody from my area must be appointed or must be elected before I'll have a sense of belonging and have a sense of the existence of governance. It's quite inappropriate. Okay, I'm from Guma, for instance, and today we have the governor of Benue State from my local government. But let me tell you, no person from Guma can be able to point the advantage derivable of hosting the governor in our place. If you go to my local, my village of Yorata, for instance, you cannot find out anything that the state government of today was able to do in that village that will benefit the people. Do you understand? Apart from the usual renovation of classroom blocks, which is the responsibility of
local government,
the UBEC or SUBEB, as the case may be. And it's quite very disheartening that in a 21st century world, government is still pointing to projects like supply of desk in primary school or renovation of a block. It's quite very unfortunate in an ICT-driven world like the 21st century world. So I want the kind of leaders that will be appointed or elected based on merit, based on their character, based on their competence. If you look at the United States, for instance, the first 10 presidents of the United States of America, out of the first 10, 6 were from the state of Virginia. From George Washington to John Adams to Thomas Jefferson, all these were from the state of Virginia. But they were able to provide a very formidable structure for the country. And so nobody cares where you come from. They vote you based on what you can be able to do. I think this should be what we should do here. If you go to Makurdi, for instance, majority of the things in Makurdi, which is our own land, in quote, the Yarib land, for instance, were done by people that were not from there. Like majority of the structure was placed by Aparaku, for instance, who is from Oshongo local government, and the other structures were placed by the military that were not even from Benue State. You know, like Jonah Jang from Plateau, Fidelis Maka, and the rest. So at the end of the day, what matters is the capacity of that leader.
So
and
are
not
you
where he come
advocating
from.
for the scrapping of federal character, if that would take us forward?
But you know, the one aspect of, let me be quite, let me, I may not answer your question very straight, because there's a benefit in federal character, but we're not applying it the way it is.
Okay.
Federal character does not mean that if I am voted here today, then the person from the other place should be voted. It only means that in the conduct of the affairs of governance, that's what Section 14 of the Constitution provides, Chapter 2, that provides for federal character principle and directed objective of state policies. It says, in the conduct of the affairs of government, appointments or the constitution of the cabinet or any agency of government should be done in such a way as to reflect the federal character. What that means is that in constituting, let's say we're in this house, we're members of this office, in constituting the leadership of this office, if the head is from this state, the vice head should be from the other state, the secretary should be from this state. Do you understand? That is the meaning of federal character. It's not that when this
But it has become our problem. It has become a problem. What if she's not competent?
No, it gives people a sense of belonging. You understand? You can always have competent people from every part of Nigeria.
But it's bringing us division as well.
For instance, there's a problem with the security, council constituted by President Buhari. You have people from. What we're saying is that no, it's quite improper because we have people of capable minds, capable hands from every part of Nigeria that can be able to achieve when placed. That is the meaning of federal character. Now, when you are doing this, okay, for instance, now today we're saying government is complicit in the carnage done by the Fulani headsmen in Benue State. Why are people saying that? Because of the way the security council is constituted. But you find, because people are constituted from one part of the country, you find them coming out of the security council and mentioning something that aligns with their own part of the country. For instance, the Minister of Defense, in one of the Security Council meetings, after coming out, who directly blamed the Benue State government for enacting anti-open grazing law as being responsible for the carnage witnessed in Benue.
The law that it's
That
the
should
people's law.
prohibit, yeah,
It's
that
the
should
people's
stop.
law. It's not
Exactly.
actually the governor's law.
Yeah, so when you see it on the surface, federal character principle also has its advantage. Do you understand? But what we're saying is that zoning is different from federal character principle. Some people use it interchangeably. You know, zoning is when you say because these people have given us leaders now, and the next set of leaders should be done by this. We should throw that to merit.
Okay, has anybody from your place help you genuinely in achieving what you want in life, much more than other people you've met out? Because people think that it's only when I have a minister from my place that I'll have development. In your journey of life,
in my journey of life,
which does not have anything to do
my
with
greatest
politics.
impact was given to me by people who are actually from my own constituency, who are actually out of my area.
Okay.
First of all, my spiritual life, I was given very serious spiritual foundation by the late Archbishop of Jos Catholic Archdiocese, Archbishop Ganaka. He's an Angas man from Panshin. You know, he saw me through my school, my nursery, my primary, up to my secondary. He was there for me. Gave me very strong spiritual backing and moral backing. And of course, like in my journey of life, in my adult age, in politics and in school, for instance, I was able to school abroad courtesy of people not within my area. Firstly, it has to do with Professor Jerry Agada, an Idoma man from Orokam, and then Gabriel Suswam, a TIF man from Logo local government. You know, those were my biggest backers. So you could see they are not from my area. And of course, Comrade Abamoro, you know.
She's an Idoma man.
Another Idoma man, you know. So they are not from my own. So that is one example of how merit trumped zoning, you know. The moment you get the right set of people, they will do the right thing, not minding where you are from. And that has helped me in my life too.
That's good. So talking to a Nigerian youth that think that things in Nigeria are beyond redemption. Talking to a Nigerian that think that things in Nigeria are beyond redemption, what would you have to tell them to give them some hope? This is the only country we have.
Correct. The first pillar of building a very virile and vibrant nation is the pillar of hope. That's the first pillar. So by the time our hope becomes dimmed, it will contribute to a very great disaster to our growth. But by the time we become hopeful, it will serve as a panacea to the growth of the nation. And so today, I understand that there's quite a very huge sense of hopelessness in our people. This is because of the kind of leadership that has been exerted on us for so long by people who are quite not having the interest of the country at heart. And let me tell you one thing before I even go on with this, with my answer. If you come around many of our people today, many of the leaders, so-called leaders that we have, if you come around them in a mutual discussion, you'll find out that a lot of them do not even have hope for this country.
Yeah.
Because you see, the same people that are vested with the responsibility of
give us hope,
of inspiring us and showing us the way, are people that always complain and say, man, this country just doesn't just have hope.
And do you know that they are seeing deeper than you can see?
Exactly. So that is one of the first problems we have. But I want to inspire us that this country is not quite unique in her odds or in her challenges. The same kind of challenges we are facing have been faced by a lot of countries that were able to surmount those same challenges. Do you understand? I don't see one area where we're quite different from any other country. If we're talking about population that we're quite too much in this country, for goodness sake, we're just number 9 in the whole world in terms of population. China is ahead of us, India is ahead of us, United States, Brazil,
India yesterday.
In Brazil, Indonesia, these are countries ahead of us in terms of population. And they are now ahead of us in terms of technology and advancement. So what is it that we're quite unique? What is the odds that we're quite unique at? There's none. If you're talking of heterogeneity of ethnic groups. Now we have so much ethnic groups. For goodness sake, we have about just 360 ethnic groups. India has about 720. You know, if you are talking of multiplicity of religion, with differences in religion, we have just two major religions that are quite Abrahamic religions. Do you understand?
Yes, they are.
You know, they are quite Abrahamic religion. They all originated from the Middle East. But India has about 7 major religions. You know, they have the Hindus, the Buddhists, Christians, Islam, Sikh. The Indians are tied their head. You know, yet they are able to advance. They are able to chart a common cause and a common purpose for their country. So I want to tell us that we don't have a different challenge or challenges from other countries. They've had similar or even worse, but they're able to surmount it. So we have to breed up that spirit of resilience, that spirit of courage, that spirit of wisdom, that as much as the challenges before us, all we pray and crave for should be that God should give us the power to surmount these challenges and not to even have them reduced.
Okay. A leader is the reflection of her people.
Correct.
Where are we going to get this particular person that will take us out of where we are? Because I have spoken to so many Nigerians, but off the camera you discover that they are speaking the same language the other person has spoken. Is there really hope? Is there really hope?
We'll keep trying until we get it right. That is, we have to keep trying.
So why didn't you
Why
didn't you decamp back to PDP, where you started from?
No, I wasn't a member of the PDP.
Okay, but why didn't you go to PDP?
No, because they are responsible for the problem we have. They started it. What APC did was just to consolidate on it. There's nothing that is happening under the APC government today that is quite unique, that is quite strange. You know, everything that we're complaining about under the APC government was initiated by the PDP.
Okay, to close our interview this evening, how would you describe the Nigerian political situation in Nigeria right now as it is?
It's very chaotic, very disorderly. There's no common front, no headway. We're just in a state of cacophony, so much confusion, you know. So we need a sense of direction. And it is those who are at the helm now that have the responsibility to chart a common cause and a common direction across bipartisan divides, across religious divides. This is not the time for us to revert back to our religion or to our partisanship or pettiness. This is the time to prioritize Nigeria, the very antithesis of what we have today. Because today you find people, first of all, they'll talk to you about being from this ethnic group or being from this party, even before talking about being a Nigerian. I think that is where the problem lies. By the time we begin to think of Nigeria first and chart a common direction along our Nigerianness, then we'll surmount these challenges. But so far, what is happening right now is that this thing is absent. Our Nigerianness is absent. Our sense of nationalism is completely lacking. So we are finding ourselves being aligned to our partisan divides, to our religious divides, to our ethnic divide, and these are the necessary evil that have stagnated our growth.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you very much.